Before we get into this episode, I wanted to introduce one of the partners for the show, Move Pre-Workout. I've been using this over the last year and can massively see the benefit with all my training. And I thought I'd invite Tom along, who was involved in the formulation.
Cheers, Mark. Obviously delighted to be supporting the podcast. And so Move Pre-Workout, we've got a strength-based formula, but this one is specifically designed for endurance athletes. And it's one of the first of its kind. We're just focusing on really high-quality ingredients that are going to benefit endurance performance of any kind. So, yeah, we're really excited by the product and delighted to be supporting podcasts like yourself.
Oh, it's amazing. And this is something that you're specifically taking before your training, before your rides, to be in best possible shape. I'd encourage you to give it a try. Go to movepreworkout.com and for a 20% discount, put the word endurance in at checkout. On with the show. Welcome back to the Endurance Podcast series. And, well, I'm very keen that we shoot these episodes outside as much as possible, either at festivals or out on these rides and records. But it's the start of the winter in Scotland. Are you enjoying that?
It's beautiful. It's a really lovely place, really lovely setting. We've got mountains behind us with clouds over them.
And snow on them.
And snow. We've got local cows with big horns and really hairy hairstyles.
The true Highland experience.
True Highland experience. It's phenomenal.
Just a place where we are. We're at Lovat. I'm reading it off the cup. Lovat Farm Cafe and Farm Shop. So thank you very much.
And a fantastic coffee as well. Really strong.
To Quinton and the team.
Handmade by Mark Beaumont.
They do an amazing job here. So they've got the storehouse heading up towards the Black Isle, and then they've set up this here near, where are we? Kirk Hall, near Beauly. So if you're exploring this part of the world, check them out, especially by bikes, because we're on a lovely wee back road here. So yeah, all weathers. We're outside filming the pod, and for this episode, joined by Kyle Gordon, who had the privilege of joining on a section of the North Coast 500 a month ago. So I thought I'd invite him back onto the pod. So whilst that was a 500-mile ride, Kyle is an ex-pro on the track, so used to going in circles very, very fast. So without spoiling his story for him, Kyle, thank you for joining us.
No, pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me.
And well, a good place to start is maybe the origin story. What got you onto the bike growing up in this part of the world?
So yeah, just like most young guys, my dad cycled the bike, so you kind of follow in your father's footsteps, don't you? Getting out in the mountain bike, that was my kind of background, mountain bike racing. And my dad would kind of take me out and train me on a Sunday, and then take me to races every weekend up and down the country, and just kind of fell in love with the sport through mountain biking. Really, that was the initial kind of kickstart to it all. And it was always a kind of a dream and as a young guy, teenager growing up, to want to be a professional cyclist, you know. But at that young age, it didn't ever really evolve into anything. It was always a lot harder coming from the Highlands of Scotland. Way back then, there's less funding to support young athletes and people aspiring to go down that path in life. So it just didn't really happen at that younger age. So yeah, that was my kind of background, get into cycling through my dad.
So you weren't into track as such until a little bit further on in life, and I understand you were a plumber, but then you packed in your job and went professional. Mm-hmm. Can you talk me through the transition from plumbing to becoming a professional track cyclist?
Yeah, it's quite funny. Yeah, so I was a plumber to trade, and also used to work offshore in the oil and gas industry on an oil rig. So I had the kind of best of both worlds. I had a good work-life balance of racing my bike at amateur level throughout the UK, having a good job, having just a good kind of young man's lifestyle, and again, going back to, it was always kind of in the back of the mind, could I have made it into the professional ranks? And my coach at the time, Peter Ettles, he'd always kind of been planting seeds in the head, you know, from around about 2014 Commonwealth Games. He was, 2018 Commonwealth Games, you should make that a goal of yours. And I was kind of like, didn't quite think it would be possible, because I was on a different kind of trajectory in life. I had a good career I was working towards, and but he kind of helped give me a bit of self-belief and said, with his help, that if I decided to go down that road, he would support me, along with another friend, Sandy. He helped kind of guide that vision too and plant the seeds. And yeah, so I was working offshore, and the Scottish performance programme were looking for athletes in January 2017, and I was 27 at the time, coming up for 28, and I wanted to see if there was still a chance that I could get on the performance programme a year out from the Commonwealth Games. So secretly, without telling anyone, I applied and did the full application, and about 2 weeks went by. I got a reply from Gary, who's now a good friend of mine, Gary Coltman, and he didn't know me for Joe Blogs at the time. Unfortunately, you've been unsuccessful at this time. And I kind of ticked that box at the time, and I thought, you know what, I can put that to bed now, and know I've got a bit of closure, because I went through all my teens and my 20s with everyone saying, oh, you're gonna make it, you've got this talent, and I kept saying, where's this person going to come from, who are they? And that person never came. And when I was going through a career, I kind of just put it to bed, but this was kind of came out at me on the Facebook adverts that the Scottish Cycling were looking for this application, so that's what I applied for. And when I got the knockback, I thought, that's fine, that's done, put to bed. Fast forward 2 months, I was actually in a training camp with Peter in Denia, and Peter was saying, we're now a year out from the Commonwealth Games, I think you should go for it. And he didn't know I'd been knocked back 2 months earlier by SC. I said, nah, I'm happy what I'm doing, happy with it. He goes, well, you know, I still believe you can do it, even you're going to be 28 years old. You should, you know, go for it. You've got a talent there. If you just focus, you know. So again, the seeds have been planted. Went through that summer of 2017, and Sandy, who I just mentioned a second ago, Sandy Wallace, he had also been giving me wee kind of boots at the backside and saying, look, this could be your last ever chance. You know, you don't know what you're going to get unless you try. And I was back offshore throughout the summer, and I was thinking, you know, could I go for it? And I looked up the criteria. One night, it was on night shift. It was a howling, like, torrential storm in the North Sea, and I went in for my tea break, and I was checking the criteria standard for qualifying for the Commonwealth Games, which were in 8 months' time. Right now, I had 8 months' experience ever. 8 hours. I had 8 hours experience on the track. Around about 7 to 8 months before the Commonwealth Games, and the only avenue to qualify would be on the velodrome, you know, because the other things were like World Tour levels racing. So I spoke to my workmates, came in for their tea break, said to them, look, I'm planning to take a sabbatical. What for? I told them I want to go to the Commonwealth Games, and they all laughed at me. You? The Commonwealth Games? You having a laugh? I was like, yeah, because they knew I was a bit of a Jack the Lad and had a, you know, I like to party and still race my bike, but they think you'll never go to the Commonwealth Games. But that was a wee bit of fuel for the fire, really, deep down. And I said, no, I want to see if I can get some time off work to go for it. So I spoke to my boss in the morning, and long story short, the head office in Aberdeen granted me a 6 to 8 month sabbatical, and I took the time off work. Didn't speak to anyone in the family or let them know what I was planning. Just rocked back up at home at end of that trip. Told my parents, who were a bit kind of shocked. I think, you know, why would I, you know, take this break from this good job and good career path? And I said, well, I want to see if I've got it as my last chance. You know, it's only going to be an 8 month sacrifice, really. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You know, phoned up the Scottish cycling head coach at the time, Mark McKay. Introduced myself on the phone. Said, hello, it's Kyle Gordon here. Says, you don't know me, but just taking a break from my career in the oil and gas industry, and I want to go to the Commonwealth Games in 8 months. And his reply was, well, you know the standard's very high. And I said, well, yeah, I know it's high, but I believe I can do it. But I need some help. I need some track time. I need some advice. He says, I don't have a clue about anything on the track, really. I mean, I've been on it for a few hours in my life. Okay, come on down to Glasgow and you can be our guest. So I moved down to Glasgow, and it was basically, just keeping my mouth shut and listening and absorbing everything as much as I could to fast track myself to qualify for the 2018 Commonwealth Games, which I did, and got selected. And before I knew it, I was put on the Scotland jersey 8 months after fitting pipes on an oil rig with basically no track experience. So yeah, it kind of all spiraled from there, really. And aye,
That's an amazing story. And how did you then go from that point in time where you started your sabbatical? You'd only been on the track for a few hours previously in your life, to then understanding everything you needed to know to be to be that at that next level to race?
Yeah.
What was the if you can give a breakdown from that point up to taking your first race, and what position did you come, and how did you then evolve?
I had to reverse engineer the whole thing. So we had to look, right, what was the standard I had to meet? What was my current standard? I was way off the mark. How did I get it? Right. I already had a good coach. I needed a nutritionist. I needed a strength and conditioning coach. I needed someone that I could lean on when the times were tough, when the times were hard. A good support network and self-belief. And that was I always believed, but I just needed someone else to say, like, you can do this, and kind of give you that kind of the motivation to go for it, you know. So yeah, I made sure I all in good equipment, so I had to invest in everything fast and train smart. You know, I knew at the age of 27, 20, I was been 28 then, that the time was against me, and maybe only had a few, you know, bullets to fire, and I had to fire them wisely, and make sure that I did everything by the book. And it was like I was training with guys that were on the squad that they were in their maybe late teens, early 20s, and they'd be turning up to training late, up on the track late when it was our block, you know. They were just forgetting equipment, forgetting basic stuff, and I was thinking, Christ, they just don't realise how good they've got it, and how, cause when we're all in our early 20s, you think we've got years ahead of us, don't we?
Yeah.
It's but you know, once you know that you've got this very small window to do something, you have to make sure you make the most of it. And that's one thing that as the time has gone on, I've made sure I've stayed true to, is like, you do get one chance, and you've got to make the most of your time and just have fun. And I'm glad, looking back, that I had the people around me that kind of gave me the confidence and planted the seeds in my head way back in the start of 2017 throughout, because without that, I probably would still be on that oil rig working, you know.
Yeah. And what was your greatest achievement, would you say, during that time?
So I was full time in the end for so from basically September 2017 to September 2023. So cycling, that part of my cycling journey gave me so much. There were so many chapters and so many different stories to tell. You know, I was involved in world record attempts with Christian Blumenfeld for his world triathlon record as a pacer. The two Commonwealth Games I got to go and represent Scotland for, race internationally for Scotland. There's just so many really, truly beautiful moments that I think I've got most of them documented somewhere, but I should really write them all down before I do forget. But if I had to pinpoint one, obviously pulling on the Scotland jersey and representing your country is huge, you know. Probably the getting to the Commonwealth Games in 2018 in such a short time, I would say it would be the golden moment.
In 8 months, that's incredible. So
Aye.
you got to the Commonwealth Games from leaving you or getting a sabbatical, from working on the rigs, to riding in the Commonwealth Games in a period of 8 months.
8 months, yeah. And I came home from Australia. It was in the Gold Coast, and I let a week or so go by just while I got over the jet lag, and I got this 01224 number. I thought, oh, there's the office. That's Aberdeen. When are you coming back? It was, hello. Hi, Kyle. Congratulations. We were following you in that. It's great story. Well done in that. We've got some bad news. The contract. We've lost the contract on the asset, and we're having a down man. So we're paying you off. So I was like, all right, no bother. That's fine. So it wasn't the end of the world. You know, I knew there'd be plenty of work out there, but I decided to have that summer at home. I'm not joking. It was the following day. Mark McKay from Scottish Cycling phoned me up and says, we want you full time on the SC performance program. We wanted to see how far we can develop you. You know, you've come on from like a huge amount. I went, huge gain on the track in that short time, and he wanted to see how far they could take me. And it was quite a proud moment, because, you know, just over a year before that, I got knocked back from the Scottish performance program and told basically, you know, age was against me. And
there's so much I want to explore here, but can you just go back to that decision? So when you went through the talent identification program, and they said no, but it was a paper exercise, you then managed to sort of get in through the back door rather than the front door. I'm interested to know what that was. And two things: the process, because you went out to Spain and you were doing some training. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
And was that your coach that was saying you should still go for it?
Yeah, my
even
coach, Peter Ettles, yeah.
Even though the door had been sort of kept closed. But then also, what's the unlock there? And I guess for the viewers and listeners, if you believe you've got that talent, for some things, especially when you're applying for a team like that, you need other people to agree. You can't just sort of say, well, I'm your guy. You need at some point other people to validate that, to go, yeah, you're welcomed in. Yeah. I'm really interested in that sort of unlock, and also how you put yourself in a position to make yourself available. So when they said no, the easiest thing would be just to go back to the day job. Mm-hmm. You clearly had the support from your coach and those around you to say, no, I think there's still an opportunity. But to go back to that same door and to have that conversation with Mark and to say, look, give me a chance. Mm-hmm. I'm really interested to know what that unlock is, because I can imagine so many people going, I think I've got something, but I need somebody else to believe in me. Mm-hmm. But other people don't believe in you before you believe in yourself. Yeah. You've got to back yourself before other people sort of see what you see in yourself. I'm really interested to know in that.
Yeah, it's
The Endurance Podcast is brought to you in partnership with Enjoy Travel. Huge thanks for all that they do. And I don't need to introduce my co-host, but over to Martin Mansell to explain Enjoy Travel.
So Enjoy Travel brings you car hire, hotels, airport parking lounges with a loyalty platform, meaning you buy 9, you get your 10th free. And you can mix and match across any range of our products. You don't need to just buy 10 car hire, you could buy a hotel, a car hire. And we're giving you a special discount code to celebrate our podcast, which is RID3R, as in rider, and you'll get up to 30% off everything.
So click on Enjoy Travel. It's been amazing for these epics, makes our travel so much more enjoyable and seamless. So thanks Martin, thanks Enjoy Travel.
I suppose it's like, these like any kind of job application, people end up with hundreds of emails on their applications on their desk, and it's just, there's no personality behind it, there's no face, it's just a sheet of paper really, isn't it? So they're probably looking, date of birth, not too old, they're looking for young guys to invest in, to bring up onto the GB system, to bring up the pro ranks. That's their investment. They probably didn't see, why would we invest in a 28-year-old man, 27, 28-year-old man. It wouldn't be a good business decision to make, would it, really? But when I actually picked the phone up and got in touch and said, look, I've given up my job, that's, and I'm committing to this, and he kept saying to me, there needs to be commitment, I'm like, I'm walking away from a great job here, I'm committed, you know what I mean? So I think once, when I turned up the first track session as a guest on Scottish Cycling, which I'll forever be grateful for, because again, without their guidance on that time as an outsider, which probably they wouldn't really do so much. You'd have to be on the program to be part of it, but to be invited in, well, not invited, to be allowed to come in and join them was brilliant. And I think from that point, in that lead up during that qualification period, I know Mark, just seeing how hungry I was, you know what I mean, and how I wanted it so badly, you know what I mean.
Those first couple of sessions on the track, with all these young guys who are the best part of 8-10 years younger than you, how did that feel? I'm putting words in your mouth, but you must have had imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm. It was probably. Don't know if I ever had imposter syndrome. I just kind of, I can get on with anyone, and I feel like I can, adapt to most situations. And I went in, I just played the grey man. I just kept myself to myself. When it was time, I was there on the track, did exactly what I was told to do each time, and just took in as much information as I could, And like everyone was really welcoming. There was a few guys, you could be a potential threat. There was only so many spaces going for the Commonwealth Games 2018. So, anyone that's been on that programme for some time, someone else trying to muscle their way in, there's, it could be a threat to them. So there was a wee bit of that. But, I just felt, at that age as well, I had enough life experience, at the age of 27, 28 to be able to go and do that, and be able to adapt into an environment where, I felt quite comfortable, But
And with these younger guys, majority of them clearly younger than you, early 20s, maybe even late teens, straight from, I don't know how it works particularly in detail, but straight from uni or straight from whatever straight into this with no life experience, no work experience. Do you think there was much ego there with them, and how did they treat you coming in older with the life experience? Or was there any case of, oh, this guy's just had a job and now he wants to have a go and he's too old, or was it not like that at all?
No,
How was their behaviour towards
yeah, no,
you?
I never picked up on any of that. No, as I say, everyone was always very welcoming and up for a laugh. I had been racing I'd been racing up until 2 years ago. I'd been racing for 22 years. In Scotland and in around the UK. So a lot of the guys and the girls and that they knew me. We knew each other anyway.
Oh yeah.
We weren't all strangers.
So was it more even a case of respect because you were older and you'd had the job, but you'd got all the experience of racing?
A bit of that. Like with time trialing and road racing, a lot of the time if you're getting results and that, there's kind of just there's a mark of respect for people when they race. Like even for myself, like looking up to other cyclists in the UK. You bow down to these guys for the times and that and the performances they do. It's and there's no. I never ever find that in cycling I've not come across many egos. Everyone's always pretty modest and humble, I would find.
Well, it's pretty humbling when you're out there, isn't it?
That's I'm yet to come across anyone that's really stood up there and going, I've done this or I've done that. Everyone's always pretty modest and humble, which is nice. It's good.
It'd be good to get into some of the nuts and bolts, especially because you were seeing it fresh, going from the road and the time trial into the track. Lots of people watching this will never be track racers, but is there anything that we can learn, especially because you were seeing it from the outside in, going in with such little track time, those first 8 months, and then off the back of Australia? Give us a sense of what that training schedule looked like, things that you needed to change, things that you thought about. I'm fascinated to know, what that was like adapting as an athlete to be a track athlete, and then, is there anything in that world that you think is interesting or relatable to people who are taking things on at a more sort of, sportif or North Coast 500 level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I would say my training evolved over time. Back in the day, I was getting around on a few hours a week racing, training, and Peter kept saying to me, "You've got to get your winters in. You've got to get your big winters in." And I zone 2, what the heck's that? And once I started listening to him and doing my zone 2 rides and seeing the kind of the performance gains from doing that long hours on a bike in the winter and the benefits from it, I started to kind of trust that kind of training and actually listen to my coach. Like when I was offshore, I would be finishing a 12 to 14 hour night shift and I would be doing in between 2 to 4 hours on a watt bike, on an oil rig or an FPSO, and that's quite character building, as I'm sure you can imagine. And then coming home and racing, and when I went full time, the training did change. It was a lot more, especially on the track. It was a lot more track sessions. You need to have the actual tight track time, and still a lot. You'd be surprised the amount of endurance riding you have to do to be fast in a 4-minute event, 4 kilometre 4-minute event. You've still got to do your 5-6 hour road rides to be, to be competitive. So yeah, there was a lot. So going back, my training would have evolved over the last kind of few years from doing a couple hours a week to 25 hours a week. Wow. On top of that, there'd be 2 gym sessions a week. And then your mobility classes and eating as much food as you could basically to recover. Like Mark, when I got on the Scottish Performance Programme full time, and I had to be coached by them and move away from Peter. Mark would have me out behind a motorbike in like Dumfries and Galloway for like 110 miles, sometimes twice a week, sitting on the back of me on right on the wheel, in every weather condition in the winter.
Did it have a roller on the back?
No roller.
No. But you're just sitting behind it.
Just sitting behind it. Getting miles and speed in the legs.
Amazing. Slipstreaming a motorbike for 100 mile.
Yeah, and he would just adjust the speed for the profile of the road, and we would do that, and that was just like being a road race. It was basically like doing 2 road races a week, So it was like really brought me on, but it was like old school training. So I wouldn't say it was at the time. He probably did me a favour. It built a massive base, but at the same time it dug a serious hole. Short term, I got quite fatigued during the year of 2018 to 2019. I got pretty tired and had to kind of recover a wee bit from the amount of volume I was doing from not doing much volume in the years before. But then give me a good springboard from 2019 through to 2023. You know, all that kind of big winters. You know.
And what's the benefits? Because I'm getting told the same thing, exactly the same thing of the longer zone 2 rides. So I like to be at the higher power generally, even when I go for a longer ride and towards my training for riding across Europe next year. But I'm getting told, I've got a coach now for the first time, that I need to be in zone 1 and 2 for 4, 5, 6 hours and try and stay within that as long as possible. And I find it hard because I find it a bit too slow. And it means I have to be out for a bit longer to do less distance. What's the benefits do you see of being in that zone 2 for the long hours?
Yeah, it's just building up that resilience and that base miles and base endurance, so you can then put a bigger kind of peak on the top of the house. It's kind of like going back to that old kind of explanation, like a pyramid. You know, the bigger the base, you've got the bigger foundations. You know, the higher the peak you can put on it come kind of race season. You know, for us it was always like winter miles, summer smiles kind of thing. You know, but
Winter miles, summer smiles.
there's definitely some good podcasts, Mark, you can listen to pass your time on those long rides. But
you're going to use that, aren't you?
Yeah, I like that. Winter miles, summer
I think
smiles.
it is so important because Martin's, you've been on this incredible journey from Martin's background's more martial arts and lots of different sports, and then through an injury finding cycling, and going from zero to hero in recent years, taking on bigger and bigger endurance rides, and it's just that your time poor, family, work. So your approach to cycling has been, I've got 2 hours, smash it. I've got 5 hours, smash it. I've got half an hour, smash it.
yeah.
And I think you're at that point now where you're like, okay, that got me so far.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it'll be bigger than ever. It's got bigger every year. It's basically a trilogy. So we started cycling around the perimeter of Yorkshire, which is bigger than a lot of people think, is 460 miles. Although you'll probably know that as you lived in Derbyshire for a while. And then year 2, we rode from Leeds to Nice in under 7 days, so it was 150 miles a day. Next year we go in the length of Europe, so it's about 3,500 miles,
Right.
targeting just over 2 weeks, between 15 and 16 days, so that'll be average of 220 miles a day. So it's a step up, a massive step up each year.
Wow.
So the question is, how do you get from 150 miles, which was mostly enjoyable, but obviously very tiring and exhausting, and in 40 degrees heat as well, probably didn't help, to get to 220 miles a day for a period of around 2 weeks, or just over 2 weeks, reducing that rest time, reducing that sleep time significantly. How would you step up from there to there? And I don't know if you have the answer, but is there anything you can relate to that step up?
Well, I'm no coach, so I've always liked to be coached. I didn't like the accountability to coach myself, and I always liked someone giving me the things to do. You know, so just I have raced long distance time trials in the past, 50s and 100s, and it's just about getting that building that resilience up in it, and getting saddle time, getting used to doing that long miles. You know, really.
Yeah.
It's, are you going to be? Is it going to be high intensity or just steady state?
It has to be ultra endurance.
Aye.
I mean, relating it to almost the same, almost the distances I was doing for the round the world in 80 days.
Yeah.
You're always protecting yourself for tomorrow. There's no point in having an amazing day 1 if you can't have an equally good day 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm really interested in with I guess pro riders like yourself, because sometimes you can race to fail. That's everything.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously with ultra endurance, you've got to be able to ride hard, but also protect yourself for the fact that you need to do the same again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what is relatable is the fact that, on the track, you might have multiple max efforts in a day. So actually recovery is key. And most people focus on what they do on the bike as opposed to what they do off the bike.
Yeah.
So as you stepped into pro life, it must have been a lot more about how you take care of yourself off the bike.
Mm-hmm. Well, eating, nutrition, so as Mark was saying there about when you're thinking about tomorrow. So when I would be out, even doing like a stage race or even just big training blocks, I'd be fueling for the next day. I'm not just fueling for today's ride. I'll be thinking, right, making sure I'm eating enough and drinking enough and getting home, having my stretching, having my foam rolls, and just getting the calories in.
How much emphasis would you put on stretching, or would you do anything like yoga or?
Yeah, so I was more. I did do a bit of yoga, but it was more around mobility. So Charlene Jones, she had Power Your Range, so she used to do online mobility classes, which were really good. And it's like around strength and conditioning of the joints and the muscles and the tendons and that. So it was pretty good, Found that helped. S&C, so strength and conditioning in the gym, that was a massive, huge performance gain on the track anyway. You're a lot of explosive power coming out of start gate from a standing start, getting up to 55k an hour in a matter of seconds. It's a lot of gym work, and I would just there's a lot of pieces of the jigsaw to the puzzles. A lot of people think it's just about riding your bike. There's not. There's the eating, the nutrition, the recovery, the S&C, the mental well-being, the whole thing. There's so many pieces to it that breed that success.
It's I'd love to, just before we close things off, actually ask you about the race. If you're doing a 4-minute effort, if you're bringing everything you've learned, everything you've trained for, especially from the road and the longer distances, into a 4-minute effort, it's amazing how quickly you can beat yourself up, right? Talk about the psychology and the physiology of a relatively short track race. I mean, I know there's shorter track races, but for somebody like me, the idea of what you did, that explosive start, and then hanging in lap after lap to keep that speed on. I mean, what does it feel like? What does it feel like? What is it that allows you, if you can summarize it, to have that consistent effort for something which is short, but it's not too short? It's still endurance, isn't it? It's endurance in a different sense, because it's not like a flying lap. It's an effort where you're having to pull on all sorts of physical strength and psychological depths.
Yeah, it takes months preparation to go and do your 4-kilometer pursuit. Gear ratio. So many conditions that can give you a different result. Air temperature, density, air pressure. It's that what gear you're going to run. There's huge amounts of work behind the scenes that has to go into practicing, start after start after start out a gate before you even rock up the race day. So yeah, the effort itself is extremely painful, and you don't do many 4-kilometer pursuits before ever. You're always maybe doing up to 3Ks. You're doing a lot of 1Ks, standing starts, half laps, quarter laps, full laps, just getting onto pace. It's all about kind of muscle memory and training your body to get used to a pacing strategy, because you have no computer. You're relying on someone trackside, your coach, shouting your splits. So it's about finding out what your ceiling is and knowing how long you can hold it, and then getting to that last 4 laps for pursuit and hanging on for dear life. It's there's so many factors to it really. But even before a pursuit, I'd be lying down in a dark room and visualizing the entire race, from warming up in my mind. I could see it all. Warming up, getting off, having my drink, going up to the starting line, sitting in the bike, everything, someone counting me down the board, coming out of the gate, lap after lap after lap, holding the black line, visualised the whole thing before I even went up to do it. So it felt normal. It was like, visualisation, isn't it? It's trying to make it as real as you could. That all helped, But yeah, they're not nice.
You say with a smile.
I kind of miss it. But
And how do you reflect on it now, from a boy growing up in the Highlands, loving riding the bike, having the dream to ride pro, slightly letting go of that dream, thinking it might never happen, having that opportunity, being pro for, even at 2018, you would have never expected that you'd have stayed racing at that level for that long. I guess. I mean, it's really. How do you reflect on it now that you've retired?
yeah, it's such a special time in my life. It's like I'm glad I took the risk. I'm glad I took the risk of myself and found that self-belief and had the right people around me to go and do it. It's time is extremely precious to us all, and not everyone gets these opportunities to go and do these things. So I'm obviously very grateful I've had them. Cycling as a whole, and obviously the time has been full time on the bike, gave me so much. Gave me incredible friendships, life experiences. Got to travel the world, experience different cultures around the world. It's given me so many connections. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have met you, Mark, if it wasn't for going full time in 2017, because I wouldn't have got asked to go and do the Heathers Heroes ride a few weeks ago. And you know what I mean? It's all looking back, these chain reaction things, the people I've met, the opportunities I've had to go and do it. You know, it's given me a lot, and I'll be forever grateful for being able to go and do it. You know, so
For sure.
Amazing.
Any last wisdom you want, Martin, before you're what way out now? Sort of 8-9 months out from this big race across Europe. It'll be one to watch for sure.
Yeah.
This endurance podcast series is building up to that event in the summer. So lots of great conversations. We're so grateful for you taking the time today, Cal. And you know, Martin and myself are going to be putting all these great conversations into practice with a big ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learn something new every conversation you have.
Good luck.
Thanks very much.
And believe in yourself.
Thanks.
You can do it. Like.
Good words.
So
Superb. Thanks for joining us.
cool. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, if you'd like to hear more conversations like with Cal Gordon, in inspiration, not just for your own challenges, but to follow this man and our journey to take on Europe in the summer, then come back for more of the Endurance Podcast series. Please do-
Subscribe.
subscribe.
Subscribe, share, like,
Comment.
and comment.
All of the above.